their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Do a full go out there?
Yeah, the past few days, they've been working me in more. Coach KO, he's been working me in more, getting back implemented, getting back in the offense, getting in the groove of things. So it's been good.
So the thumb, I mean, is it starting near 100% at this point?
Yeah, I mean, we've been working at it. You know, I'm still working at it every day. But you know, that's the plan for sure.
How did it feel today when you were catching? Was today your first day catching?
No, I've been out here a couple of days. It feels good. Just getting back in the groove of things. I've been out a few weeks now, so, you know, just getting back into football conditioning.
There he is, Irv Smith Jr., just showing everyone that the thumb is attached. He has his shoulder pads on. It was a little mangled. There was a bone still sticking out of it. I don't know if that's going to matter, but
Reckless speculation.
This is Mackey and Judd. Reckless Speculation Thursday. Happy Reckless Speculation Thursday to all who celebrate, and that means we bring our friend in from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department, the Scoop Podcast, Darren Doogie Wolfson, with inside information about Minnesota sports teams. Doogie, great job pressing Irv Smith Jr. on his status. What did you learn? Let's start. We'll talk some Vikings here. Any sense of how likely it is that he'll actually play in that first game against the Packers?
Yeah, so 10 days out. Good morning, gentlemen. Happy first day of September. Happy Gophers opening day. Most importantly, happy Reckless Speculation Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like he'll play in 10 days, but Phil, he was not ready to volunteer that he'll 100% be ready to go. Kevin Seifert pressed him later in that conversation yesterday. So I initiated the conversation, a couple questions. Care 11 Photog threw in a question. Then Kevin eventually said, okay, well, are you good to go September 11th? He was not quite ready to say that. He went with the cliche, one day at a time, hopeful, but wasn't ready to declare, hey, I'll be in there against the Packers. But it was clear, having watched a good 45 minutes of practice yesterday until they booted us out, that he did ramp up his activity. That's why I chased him down as he came off the practice field. Just from my eyes, I was like, okay, it looks like he's doing more just in terms of blocking. I know last week, you know, he was limited. He ramped up activity last week before the Denver game. But just from what I saw yesterday, it looked to me like he was doing more and more. So that's why I wanted to interview him. But if I had to guess, I mean, you know, the Vikings' initial timeline was, yeah, he should be ready to go by week 1. The fact that he's doing more and more in practice 10 days out, my hunch is he'll be able to do something on September 11th.
So, Dukes, 7 of the 11 players that Rick Spielman drafted in his last draft class, 2021, have now been cut. Some of them, a couple brought back on practice squad. So, but the reality is the Darisaw pick looks good, but the depth of that draft looks like a complete bust. What is the feeling that you get, and what do you think that the message is when you basically take a 1-year-old draft class and decimate it as much as Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell did?
Well, and, you know, like, they didn't even want some of these guys back for the practice squad. Like, Wyatt Davis is now on the Giants practice squad. The Vikings didn't even want him on the practice squad. Kellen Mond, claimed by the Browns. The Eagles, by the way, also tried to claim Kellen Mond. But the Vikings were not interested in adding Kellen Mond to the practice squad.
That's
now,
amazing.
Cam Bynum, pretty good. Patrick Jones, pretty good. Christian Darrisaw, very good. But I was just texting with somebody on Ihmir Smith-Marsette because that waving of Smith-Marsette surprised me yesterday. The person instantly texted back and said, new regime. All about the new regime. Now, we'll find out later today if Smith-Marsette gets claimed. This person told me 4 Eastern, 3 Central, although some of the waiver claims came in earlier than that yesterday. But nonetheless, we'll find out later today. There is a belief that somebody will claim him. If not, the Vikings do have some interest in adding him back to the practice squad. But yes, they decimated. Kwesi and company decimated Rick Spielman's 2021 draft class. That might be why Rick hasn't gotten back to me. I've been trying to track down Rick for a TV piece I'm working on. I need a soundbite or two from him on something I'm working on for the Vikings-Eagles game on Channel 5, that game is. So we're doing a pregame show, a postgame show. So I'm working on something, potentially working on something. So I just need Rick for a few minutes. But he must think, you know what, Doogie's going to hammer me on my 2021 draft class. What the heck has happened? So maybe that's why Rick hasn't gotten back to me. But yeah, it's all about Kwesi and company loving their 2022 picks. Jalen Naylor making the 53-man roster. I think that was a surprise, Judd. I think a lot of people thought, okay, go ahead, pick up a receiver. Like BC goes down, BC doesn't make the 53-man with the knee injury. Okay, go pick up a receiver. that means that Jalen Naylor will be released. But no, Jalen Naylor makes the team. By the way, on Jalen Naylor, in the concussion protocol, I don't know if that's been reported. I did put it on social media, but I don't know if anybody else picked up on that. But he's in the concussion protocol right now. But I think that surprised people that Naylor stayed, Smith-Marsette went.
Just to put the Mond thing to bed here, it is fascinating how quickly that thing came to an end. And I'm not saying the way that Mike Zimmer handled it was correct, because I don't think you need to get up at a podium after the Packers game and just fillet your young rookie quarterback. There was just really no need for it. There was no strategic value in it. He was just mad, and he buried his young backup quarterback. So I don't like the way he handled it. But ultimately, Mike Zimmer was right about Kellen Mond. And a new regime comes in, a new coaching staff comes in, and they see the same things. They didn't like him at practice. I mean, Judd was accused of being a bully in his coverage about Kellen Mond throughout training camp. It's like, no, Judd was right too. He was so unimpressive to this new regime all off season. Like you said, they didn't even try to bring him back to the practice squad, let alone keep him on the roster as a backup or a third string quarterback. And so I guess, what have you sort of heard? It can't just be, hey, he was slow to pick up the offense. I mean, what have you heard about some of the other things they didn't like about Mond? Because for that thing to come to an end as quickly and abruptly as it did means, boy, they did not like what they saw behind the scenes or on film from him.
So pre-draft, Mond last year worked with Hugh Jackson, one of Mike Zimmer's close friends. In fact, at one point, Mike and Hugh had a conversation about Hugh joining Zim's staff here. So they've had enough conversations about Mond. Hugh is still a big Kellen Mond guy, but Zim said, hey, Hugh, it's just not there. Then we transition into the new regime, new year. Judd was always spot on. I mean, anybody who was out there, right, all those open training camp practices, it was clear as day. Then just watch the preseason games. It's just not there. Now, I'm not ready, Phil, to declare the final chapter being written that he is a bust. Now, it may end up, like Josh Rosen, right? Like Josh Rosen, former first-round pick. At this point, I think we can label him a bust. I'm not ready to call Kellen Mond that. It may eventually get to that point. But, the Browns get him. The Eagles also put a claim in on him. So a couple teams had interest in him, right? Adding him to their 53-man. So I'm just saying, let's wait and see. But, yeah, when it's two different coaching staffs saying, okay, this guy can't play, pretty darn damning for a top 70 pick.
Are you hearing buzz about who with Mond now gone to Cleveland and Mannion choosing the Seahawks practice squad, Dukes, who they might bring in? Because there's a small available list of guys, including, if I'm not mistaken, and this is not going to impress folks, but he was here briefly during the rookie / veteran tryout process. Brett Hundley was actually here, then signed with Baltimore, and he's now out there. Who they might bring in as their sort of emergency practice squad quarterback.
That was the first name that hit me, Judd. I have a text out awaiting word back if he will be the guy. They will bring in somebody for the practice squad, not the 53-man. But unfortunately, outside of telling you that they did make Sean Mannion an offer, they were hopeful that Mannion would choose them, not Seattle. I don't have an update on who they are going to sign, but make no mistake, they will add another body. It was weird yesterday. I missed you there, Judd, but it was weird yesterday watching practice with only two quarterbacks. So they will add a third in the very near future.
Why would they even make Sean Mannion an offer for the practice squad? What is the point?
Well, because he's Kirk's guy.
He can't play.
He's Kirk's guy. They need another body. They feel like there's value in having him in the quarterback room. Sure, we realize on the field the man can't really play, but they feel like there's some value behind the scenes. They really do. And so the close relationship he has with Kirk.
Well, I'm sure Geno Smith is about to be a Pro Bowler in Seattle. Watch out, guys.
Look out, Drew.
Watch out.
I heard recklessly speculating. I heard behind the scenes that Kirk was politicking for Mannion to make the 53.
What?
That Kirk wanted. That the initial steam was Kirk. That they got intelligence, a young player that they were actually going to waive in order to keep Mannion on the 53 would be claimed, and that's why they tried this move. But that there was initial thought process of three quarterbacks, Mannion as the third guy because of Kirk.
I trust that information. I'm just telling you. I mean, I know how close Kirk and Sean are. I have not necessarily heard that, but that fits our theme of today, reckless speculation. I don't even know if it's that reckless, Judd. Just knowing how close Kirk is with Sean, Kirk had to know, hey, if he hits the open market, there's no guarantee that he signs with us. I mean, I think we knew there was a guarantee he wasn't going to get claimed. But, Kirk had to think, okay, if he hits the open market, in all likelihood he is going to hit the open market, he may not choose us. There was intel before yesterday that the Seahawks had some interest in adding him to their practice squad. If you're Sean, you have connections to the Pacific Northwest from your days at Oregon State, you look at the Seahawks quarterback room, you may look at it and say, you know what? I have a better chance of being elevated to the 53-man here in Seattle than I do in Minnesota. That will help my wallet. I am going to Seattle.
Dude, I mean, I've never seen a bigger gap between someone's complete inability to play the position that they're supposed to play in the NFL and whatever perceived value they still have anyways. I mean, Sean Mannion is going to wind up being a Hall of Fame head coach someday if he is so brilliant behind the scenes that it makes up for his total ineptitude as an actual player. This dude's been in the NFL for almost a decade, and he has had some chances in games, and his teams have zero chance to win the games that he comes in and plays in. In the preseason, too.
He can't even carved out one heck of a career.
Dude, he can't even carve third-string defenses in the preseason, and he still gets jobs in the NFL. It's and bravo to this front office and coaching staff for standing up to Kirk Cousins and saying, listen, I know you guys are friends. I know that he helps you break down film or whatever. He can't play. He's not going to take up a spot on the 53. Maybe we'll give him a spot on the practice squad.
Well,
he turns that down.
Yeah, they wanted to.
It's just be done with it, for God's sakes.
Think about the career he's carved out, though. I mean, somebody could Google the exact amount of money he's earned. Think about the pension he currently has with all that service time.
Journeyman, man.
Pretty remarkable. Brilliant. Now, I will add, I was talking with KJ Osborne after practice yesterday. He said that Sean, compared to all the other quarterbacks he's played with, throws the hardest ball. That he's like a mini rocket man. I've never noticed that watching Mannion. I mean, he's got a quick release, but I've never noticed the ball traveling at a faster speed, a tougher ball to catch than some of the other quarterbacks. So I thought that was fascinating that Osborne pointed that out.
By the way, he has made $6.2 million playing football. So
God bless him for that.
Absolutely. Good for him.
It's not a bad
jealousy
living.
and envy on my part.
It's not a bad living. Anyhow, what else are you? Let's get into the Jalen Reagor thing here for a second. I kind of love this, and it's a great buy low opportunity. What I told Judd and Declan on Purple Daily, Doogie, was, Kwesi has been very open about the way he views roster building, which is everything is a calculated gamble. It's all, you're looking at basically a stock portfolio of players and decisions. And in general, from 30,000 feet, guys who were first and second round talents, especially not that long ago, because Jalen Reagor's 23 years old still. He's not that old. Kwesi's looking to place bets, buy low, on guys that were, and Ross Blacklock was a 40th overall pick, that, hey, maybe they haven't done anything yet, but if we can maximize what their potential is and buy low for 7th round draft picks and trades, these are stocks that might rise. So I kind of like the buy low options that they've brought in the last couple days. What are you seeing and hearing?
I have no problem with that trade. I do have a problem if he is your number one punt returner based on his body of work in Philadelphia. Now, he has returned punts, but if you watch the video, it's not real encouraging, but he has done it. I imagine he's coming in here as the number one punt returner. In practice yesterday, it was KJ Osborne and Patrick Peterson returning punts. So I imagine that Jalen Reagor comes in as the number one punt returner. I just don't know if I would trust him as the number one punt returner, but why not? Right? I mean, the speed was evident coming out of TCU. The talent was there. It's not like the Eagles were the only team that had a first-round grade on him. So, sure. And, along what you were talking about, Phil, just how Kwesi, constructs a roster and all that, they did also try to trade for Denzel Mims of the Jets. Now, it wasn't going to be Mims and Reagor. It was one or the other. So they made the Jets, I'm told, the same offer they made Philadelphia for Reagor. The Jets
same
said
draft,
no.
right? Same draft.
Yeah, same offer. So it was either going to be Mims or Reagor. My understanding is they also spoke with the Dolphins, the Jaguars, and the Giants about some receiver. So they were looking to trade for a receiver. It wasn't just Reagor or bust. But the idea of Jalen Reagor rolling the dice, taking a chance, heck, why not? I had a great conversation with Ross Blacklock about Reagor. They were teammates at TCU. You know, Ross is going to be biased, but he's convinced a change of scenery, not only for him, but for Jalen, will do a lot of good. That he still feels like there's a lot of good there with Jalen Reagor.
So, Dukes, Watts is gone now. I think that if you go back to Cutdown Day, he was easily, in my opinion, on Cutdown Day, the biggest surprise because we all thought he was going to start. Yes. Blacklock is in. What are you hearing, or what's your sense about how this is going to play out? Because if Blacklock is going to come in and start, and that's the plan, I'm a little bit concerned about that. If Blacklock is part of a greater plan, which might end with Sue, and I have heard that there at least have been some recent discussions or dialogue between the Vikings and the Sue camp. That makes a ton of sense, but I don't like the idea. I don't like the idea of a Blacklock rehabilitation project here without a backup plan that at least gives you more security than, in my opinion, you have right now at that defensive end position.
You alluded to it on Twitter, Judd. I alluded to it on the latest Scoop podcast, episode 397, that 400. Posted on Wednesday, that there's more coming. Now, when you alluded to it, that was before the Reagor trade. I think that was before the Blacklock trade, but that there was more coming. Maybe it was after the Blacklock trade, pre-Reagor trade. And when I recorded my podcast, it was pre-Reagor trade, but I wasn't necessarily pointing to that. So, yes, I do wonder about Ndamukong Suh. Like you, Judd, I've heard of recent dialogue. Now, my sense is it's more Sue's agent initiating that dialogue. That Sue's agent says, whoa, the Vikings just waived Armon Watts? Okay. Like, more than ever, my client makes all the sense in the world to land in Minnesota. So there has been recent dialogue, but I just don't know if the Vikings are willing at this point to pay Sue what he's looking for. So Sue needs to come off that $8 or $9 million ledge. If he wants to take less, yeah, I'm inclined to think the Vikings are willing to bring him in. I have a hard time believing the Vikings are paying him $8 or $9 million. Though.
Yeah. Hey, I want to, unless you have any other Vikings things, I'd like to change the topic thread.
Sure,
any
a
other
couple
quick Vikings
ones.
things?
Yeah, Joe Haig, Brainerd, Minnesota native, offensive lineman, North Dakota State. The previous Vikings regime had some interest in him in the past, so the Steelers let him go yesterday. I was curious, would the Vikings have interest? The answer is no. He is visiting the Las Vegas Raiders today. As somebody suggested to me, if the Vikings had interest in Joe Haig, it probably would have been a 1-for-1 trade, right? Haig to Minnesota, Jesse Davis to Pittsburgh. But nonetheless, I wanted to check on the Minnesota native, but no on Vikings' interest in Joe Haig. I've been asked about O.J. Howard, the free agent tight end. Mm-hmm. Could he potentially land here? I was told he is going to land elsewhere. I didn't hear anything else. I didn't hear if the Vikings have made an inquiry or anything like that. I was just told O.J. Howard expected to land elsewhere. Also, I was asked a bunch, Phil, about Tyler Johnson. Yeah. Would the Vikings put in a claim? The answer is no. I'm not overly surprised because if you go back to the 2020 pre-draft, the Vikings were not interested in Tyler Johnson. It wasn't just Rick Spielman. It was some other guys below Rick. Some of those guys are still in place right now. And I get it, body of work changes, but like the Vikings weren't fans of Tyler pre-draft in 2020, so I'm not surprised they didn't put a waiver claim in now. They would not have gotten him anyway, right? Houston above the Vikings pecking order-wise on the waiver wire. I'm happy for Tyler landing with Eric Murray and Blake Cashman in Houston. He should have a chance to play with the Texans.
Yeah. Dukes, 5 years ago on the old radio version on 1500 ESPN of this show, and you came on, it was a Thursday or whatever day we used to do the radio scoop sessions, and you brought Jerry Kill as a guest with us, and we wound up, just a little inside baseball here, generally on the radio, you have between like 12 and 20-minute segments, and then you have to take, you have a certain amount of commercials you have to run in a given hour or in a given 4-hour show. And I remember Declan was filling in that day for Dave Harrigan, I believe. And Jerry Kill got on a roll, just ripping Mark Coyle and saying, I'm never going to step foot on that campus ever again. You know, we asked him like 4 questions over the course of 45 minutes, and he just torched everyone. And we're like moving commercials into the like later in the day, just stay live. And we grabbed one of the clips of him saying he'll never step foot on the campus, and we put that out on Score North social media earlier this week. So we know how Jerry feels about the way PJ sort of teed up, hey, I'm going to change the culture. He took the job, he's going to change the culture, and that rubbed Jerry the wrong way. Jerry went on with Randy Shaver a few days ago and said, I'm not sure if I'm going to shake his hand after the game. You know, classic. And of course, Jerry at his press conference, New Mexico State, I don't want to make it about me. It's not about me. It's like, well, you did just come out and say that you might not shake PJ Fleck's hand, so it's very much about you. You've kept the relationship with him. I mean, I'm not going to say you guys are best friends, but what are your thoughts on this game tonight? I'm more intrigued by the handshake after the game than the actual game itself, but, you know, sort of digesting everything the last 5 years, what are your thoughts going into this game?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the game intrigues me. The Gophers should win by a lot. They are favored by 36, yes. I do have nightmares about Bowling Green last year, but I don't think that is occurring again, especially after New Mexico State played late on Saturday. They lose to Nevada, then have to travel on Wednesday for a Thursday night game here. I am curious to see who starts at right tackle for the Gophers. My understanding is Quinn Carroll, the transfer from Notre Dame, Edina High School, should play some, but they may rotate. So there are things on the field that certainly intrigue me, even though I expect the Gophers to win by 5 or 6 touchdowns. But yes, I'm more intrigued by whether it's pregame, postgame, what does take place. I did catch up with Tracy Claeys earlier this week, former Gophers head coach, Jerry Kill's defensive coordinator, took over for Kill November, or I guess it would have been October of 2015, when Kill had to retire from the Gophers job because of health reasons. You know, Claeys told me, no shock, that Jerry wasn't scheduling this game, right? Jerry wanted to be a head coach again. His doctors gave him the blessing to be a head coach again. New Mexico State hires him. I don't think anybody else was going to hire him. TCU, for example, when he was the interim coach, TCU was not hiring Jerry Kill, but New Mexico State decides to hire Jerry Kill. Jerry was not scheduling this game. The game just happened to be on the schedule. But you're right. I mean, it's everything you said when Jerry says he doesn't want the game to be about him. He has made it about him. And it all goes back to year 0 talk. Claeys told me this the other day. The year 0 talk, cleaning up the culture, that PJ tried to frame it, that this thing was completely broken. And Kill and Claeys just don't believe that they feel like, you know, if things were broken, it was when Kill and Claeys took over for Tim Brewster in 2011. This thing was not broken January of 17 when PJ Fleck took over. Remember, yes, there was the threat of the boycott. There were those players that were expelled, you know, the sexual assault situation, all that. There were things, don't get me wrong, but, you know, the roster itself did win, 9 games? Tracy Claeys won back-to-back bowl games. They won that Holiday Bowl. Still, to me, like, it's underplayed here in town, but still, to me, in my lifetime, one of the all-time great Gopher victories. Just remember the situation heading into that Holiday Bowl. Then they find a way, December of 16, to win that game in San Diego. It was pretty nuts. But It's all about what PJ Fleck was saying those first few weeks, you know, his introductory news conference, January of 17 into spring practice, March of 17, about how the culture had to be fixed. Now, in PJ's defense, things did go a little haywire in 16, right? I mean, there were some things, especially after Jerry left. Now, was it completely broken? Was it completely screwed up? No. But were there things that needed to be fixed? Some of the players enjoyed, you know, some of the ganja and some of that stuff. Yeah, some of that stuff had to be fixed. So I can see it both ways. Like, Phil, to me, I'm okay if a Gopher fan says, you know what? I respect what Kill and Claeys did, really cleaning up the program, elevating the program, taking the program to its first New Year's Day bowl game in decades. Remember the loss to Missouri? Mm-hmm. They did a lot of stuff, right? They knocked on the door, just like Fleck has, of winning the Big Ten West. But I'm also okay if a fan says, you know what? I respect what they did. but I really enjoy the PJ Fleck regime. You know, he's built this thing up even more so. You look at the infrastructure. I've talked to Tracy about this. They have upwards of 20 to 30 more bodies. Not coaches, some coaches, but just support staff. When you think about Gophers football now, to me, it's a mini company. It was a ma and pa shop under Killing Clays. This thing is now completely different. It's modernized. They've caught up with the Joneses. They've surpassed many of the Joneses in many ways. Fleck had to do that. This is what that program needed. So, like, to me, if a Gopher fan says, okay, I can respect Killing Clays, but I'm also happy that Mark Coyle made the move, that he didn't retain Clays. He went with his own guy. He brought in Fleck, right hire, for sure the right hire, and I'm happy where the program is today. I completely get it. But for me, it's like a lot of people, it's like one or the other. And I don't think it necessarily has to be one or the other, if that makes sense to you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Absolutely. Hey, Dukes, what's the expectation here, especially with the change at OC back to Soraka? Tanner Morgan, 2 years ago, 3 years ago was fantastic. I thought last year, and this is not breaking news, was a disaster. What's the realistic expectation for a guy who we talked about at one time as a potential draft pick and certainly now would not be? Like, where can they get him back to, do you think?
Well, I mean, they can get him back to being more accurate, making better decisions. Although he can take some 50-50 chances. When you have Chris Ottman-Bell, when you have Dalen Wright, you can throw the ball up. Those guys can go up and get the ball. If you remember, Morgan was really good in 2019 with Kirk Shiraka calling plays. Now, Tyler Johnson had a lot to do with that. Rashad Bateman had a lot to do with that. But
yes,
they have talented receivers. One thing I can guarantee you, Judd, the Gophers are going to pass the ball more this year than they did last year. If you recall, outside of the service academies, no team ran the ball, more than the Gophers. They are not going to run the ball as much as they did last year. So look for Tanner to make better decisions. He is very, very comfortable with Kirk Shiraka being back as the play caller. That is a big deal. It's been talked about enough, but let me just hammer it home right now. Kirk Shiraka being back as the Gophers play caller helps them immensely.
Yeah. All right. Anything else in your scoop bag here, Dukes, before we part ways for the week?
Sure. When you look at, some NFL talent on that Gophers roster, John Michael Schmitz at center, certainly Ottman-Bell. You've got other guys that should get a look, like Mo Abraham. NFL scouts are curious to see in game action how he looks coming off the torn Achilles. So tonight, 5 NFL teams will have scouts at Huntington Bank Stadium. The Saints, the Panthers, the Ravens, the Steelers, the Raiders. So the Gophers will certainly have a bunch of NFL scouts at all their games this year.
Awesome. There he is, Darren Doogie Wolfson. Inside information.
Two more so with twin September call-ups. Billy Hamilton on his way to Chicago. No surprise if you've heard me or seen me on Twitter. And they just claimed a lefty reliever from the Red Sox, Austin Davis. Look for him to be the 14th pitcher. So the Twins can add 2 players for the roster starting tomorrow in Chicago. September call-ups go from 26 to 28 players. Look for Billy Hamilton. Look for Austin Davis.
Love it. All right, Dukes, great stuff, man. We'll catch you next week.
See you, boys. Bye-bye.
All right, Darren Doogie Wolfson here on this Reckless Speculation Thursday. We do have some old tweets exposed here in just a moment, but that excellent scoop session presented in part by the official dog food of Mackey and Judd and Maya and Stella. That's right. It's NutriSource. NutriSource is all about gut and digestion health, which is what we're all about, too, the humans on the show. All right? You want those Tootsie Roll poops? Very good for everyone involved.
I didn't see this one coming.
You don't want to be pulling poop out of the dog's rear end like I was doing this morning. You need a nice Tootsie Roll.
Dude,
poops.
why does I think Vinny needs to get on some NutriSource. NutriSourcePetFoods.com.
Thank you. Where's this going?
NutriSourcePetFoods.com.
Okay, that's good.
Find a
Thank
retailer
you.
near you. You can
Stellan Rider.
Get the same look on your dog's face, exciting look that our dogs have every time they come near a bowl of NutriSource. NutriSource chicken and rice, by the way, is Maya's food of choice. Also, a shout out to our friends at the Meadows at Mystic for helping us through the golf season, Dex.
That's right. I got 27 holes on deck tomorrow. 27 holes of golf. and I can't wait to get out there and swing some sticks. You should get out to the Meadows at Mystic Lake this weekend, too. You can book your tee time at golfthemeadows.com to learn more. It's a scenic and award-winning 18-hole public golf course, just located a little bit down the Twin Cities, 169. They have a great golf pro shop. They have a great patio. You can book your tee time now, golfthemeadows.com to learn more.
All right, it's time now for Declan to go back into the Twitter archives here and find incriminating tweets or interesting tweets from our past, old tweets exposed here on Mackey and Judd.
Fellas, I did a combing of some Kellen Mond takes from all three of us.
Oh, boy.
Throughout the last, you know, from the
Fair.
moment he was, basically from the moment he was drafted through the last year. So let's start with Phil here. This is from about 3 or 4 days after the draft in 2021. We had Eric Eager on that day to kind of talk about Kellen Mond. And after Eager left, Phil had this to say about Kellen Mond.
A couple days ago, I really feel strongly that the drafting of Kellen Mond and the current contract status of Kirk means that Kirk will be traded in like February or March, maybe April of next year. And Kellen Mond is the starting quarterback, unless there's a bunch of red flags behind the scenes or something that are unforeseen. But, you know, if I'm Spielman, and maybe this conversation has taken place, I'm going maybe even behind the scenes, maybe just a private conversation with Kellen Mond and his agent. And I'm saying, guys, can't promise anything, but prepare for the next 12 months like you are going to be the starting quarterback going into camp in 2022.
I told you, unless there's red flags behind the scenes.
There's red flags.
Red flags behind the scenes, like, I don't know, like he can't play, which is a red flag that popped up a couple times. He can't play.
Fun while it lasted.
Don't blame me, okay? Don't blame me because Kellen Mond couldn't live up to the pressure of being the starting quarterback in the Minnesota Vikings.
I did not say a thing and will not until I see how I am exposed, because mine could be worse than yours. I don't know.
We'll stay in chronological order here. I was next, so this was, I believe, after the first preseason game of last year during Mond's rookie year, and here's what I said. Yeah, it's similar to me, but I'll take it one step further, and I think Kellen Mond solidifies himself as QB2 after this game against the Colts.
Oh, see?
I think Browning's stock is falling, and I know Mond has been behind the 8 ball, but I think there's a serious case, especially with the way he's been talked about and been playing at preseason. I think Saturday is a chance for him to solidify his case for QB2. I know we all thought he'd be the third stringer, and there still even might be a chance they could bring in another veteran backup, but I think he's trending in the right direction, that he's actually going to be the primary backup to Kirk Cousins when they open in Cincinnati on week 1.
Definitely trending in the right direction. Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, trending in the right direction.
Yeah, man, was my face fat. That's all I got to say about all
Yeah, I love looking at these because the Livia Judd is
Livia
completely
Judd
different.
Far better than that, Judd.
Boy, all right. Well, what's those we're kind of 0 for 2 on those takes. All right, let's see what's in store here with Judd.
One last one for Judd here, who after watching the first week of games of last year's regular season, asked this simple question.
But the more I watch teams utilize guys like that right now in specific packages, why don't the Vikings consider the same thing for a package of plays with Kellen Mond? Kellen Mond brings a skill set, and I'm not saying overloaded, but Kellen Mond, for let's say a 5 or 6 play package, especially initially, would bring a skill set that Kirk Cousins simply does not have. And you know what? Right now, Kirk Cousins is a better quarterback. He's obviously knows the game way more because he's been around it. There's no reason to bench Kirk Cousins. I'm not advocating that, so people hear me clearly. But Kellen Mond, we saw it in preseason. He's athletic. He doesn't look completely lost, and there are certain things that he could do on the field that Kirk Cousins simply can't do. And if you unveiled a package of plays, as I said initially, and caught opponents by surprise with Kellen Mond using his athletic ability, where Kirk Cousins would struggle or it would be impossible for him to make the same plays, it could give the Vikings an edge, and they need an edge, and their offense definitely could use something that keeps opponents off balance. A Kellen Mond package would do that. Give it some thought. I have.
You know what? Judd was right. There are things that Kellen Mond can bring to the field that Kirk Cousins can't, like hanging onto the ball for a half hour and taking a bad sack on the edge of field goal range. You know, he could have brought that dynamic to the Vikings offense.
I didn't even have the decency to brush my hair that day.
Yeah.
Well,
Like
yeah. Yeah.
I didn't even notice.
There's a lot
Anyhow.
of things.
Anyway, those are all bad. So
That's pretty bad. I mean, I don't know what we do. I think it's kind of a three-way tie for just being wrong about Kellen Mond. Or maybe
Time
being
together.
too hopeful about what Kellen Mond could be. We had an idea of what he could be, and he's just not that, unfortunately.
I've seen him practice.
Yeah, Mike Zimmer
Truer
and Judd.
words, unfortunately, never spoken. I've seen him practice.
Yep.
I see him every day. So
I see him
is the
every
quote.
day.
I see him every day.
Do you want to see more of Kellen Mond? I see him every day.
I see him every day.
Yeah.
That's
So,
a top.
all right.
That's a top 5, along with the Daniel Carlson line. Why did you cut him? Did you see him kick?
Yeah. Yeah. God, Mike was just always leading with emotions, for sure.